Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 3:28 p.m. on Saturday, April 25, 2020. I am Master Thich Thong Lai, and I would like to extend my warmest greetings to the overseas compatriots and the Vietnamese compatriots in the country. I was very busy this morning, therefore I couldn't answer many emails I have received. This afternoon, I have a little free time, and I want to spend a little time answering emails from my Buddhist followers as well as Vietnamese compatriots in the country and abroad. I will prioritize replying to emails related to, first, the South China Sea situation, followed by the situation in Vietnam, and finally, the situation in North Korea. Please listen to me as I read the first email. Venerable Thich Thong Lai, we are a number of Buddhist followers residing in Japan, often monitoring your talks on Livestream. We have a question regarding the Liaoning fleets of Xi Jinping anchored in the Eastern Sea. The Chinese fleet stationed in the waters of Malaysia over the past 3 days, but Xi Jinping did not take any action. These vessels stayed there, neither fighting nor retreating. We ask you to spend some time to answer these questions for us. Signed by a group of Buddhist followers who are living in Tokyo, Japan. We wish the vulnerable great health. Ladies and gentlemen, when Xi Jinping is under pressure from Chinese hawkship generals, he must bring his naval fleet down to the South China Sea and face the countries of Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand, to prove their strength as a superpower in Asia. Xi Jinping was under pressure from Chinese hawks, so he launched a fleet to accompany the aircraft carrier. The ship's logistics and escort refuel tankers passed Vietnamese island. China called Vietnamese Spratly and Parcel Island as Xisha and Nisha Islands. The Vietnamese government did not say anything. While passing by Parcel and Spratly Islands, Chinese Communist Party brought Phạm Văn Đồng note signed in 1958 to the United Nations. In this note, former Prime Minister Phạm Văn Đồng of Communist Vietnam recognized that territory waters are only 12 nautical miles. Based on this note, the Chinese demanded Vietnam to withdraw all military bases that are illegally stationed on the Parsley and Spratly Islands, even though it is a Vietnamese territory. All the oil rigs in the Two Chins Beach must also be returned to China as well. As the Chinese fleet reached the Malaysian water from the south, the Malaysian Prime Minister commanded the Navy to use its 20 warships ready for defense. The Prime Minister is a man of wisdom. He is quick on reacting at the situation to protect the Malaysian peninsula. These islands are 1,000 and hundreds miles from Malaysia capital. In the past, these islands were undisputed between Malaysian Navy in Chinese vessels. While the Prime Minister had the Malaysian fleet prevent the invasion of the Chinese communists, he also sent a note to the United Nations requesting that the United Nations protect Malaysia under the maritime law of the sea. He stated that Malaysia is willing to negotiate by diplomatic settlement, while his country was ready to retaliate if the Chinese communists invades the territorial waters of Malaysia. Although Malaysian Navy is not as powerful as Chinese Communist force, that was two very wise decisions from the Malaysian Prime Minister. If they only returned fire, they would be trapped. But Malaysia declared to resolve disputed territory with Chinese communists by diplomatically at the United Nations. Xi Jinping received these diplomatic notes from the United Nations, and if he still orders his fleet to attack Malaysia instead of resolving by talk, China surely would lose their righteousness. In addition, the two U.S. destroyers and a small aircraft carrier equipped with the new F-35 model are stationed 50 nautical miles away from the Chinese fleet. Out of nowhere, the U.S. warship appeared on the back of the Chinese Communist fleet to block the supply route if war broke out. And secondly, the U.S. vessels would intervene to protect an ally of the defense pact of Southeast Asian countries, which also includes Australia and India. The day before yesterday, the Royal Australian Navy launched its warship to Malaysian water, and India also brought its fleet into the area. It was an agreement that the United States had made with Australia, India, and other Southeast Asian countries last year. Xi Jinping cannot order his fleet to attack without losing his righteousness. It was a wise move by the Malaysian Prime Minister by utilizing their navy and sending a request for diplomatic negotiation at the United Nations under the maritime law of the sea in 1982, which was signed by the Chinese Communist Party and other countries around the world. If the Chinese Communists decides to withdraw now, Xi Jinping will lose his integrity and will be condemned by hawkish generals in the country, because he is coward not to order to shoot. Xi Jinping planned to occupy a few islands and wait for the United States to intervene to help Malaysia. Other countries in the world will meet the United Nations to condemn Chinese communists. The Chinese will then return the islands back to Malaysia. In the end, Xi Jinping made the Chinese people and hawkish generals who were disrespected at him to unite as a bloc and support him again. Unfortunately, President and General Secretary Xi Jinping had miscalculated because the Malaysian Prime Minister was a very clever man protecting his country by both force and diplomacy. So it was wise for the Chinese Communists to start the fight. This is the reason both sides anchored at sea in the distance of 3 to 5 nautical miles without doing anything. If Xi Jinping decides to withdraw, his hawkish generals will surely impeach him, and diplomatic war will explode all over China. The Chinese fleet cannot station in the South China Sea for a long period of time because the Liaoning would run out of diesel. The escort vessels and the reserve tankers will eventually use up all its fuel. The United States warships are 50 nautical miles away to block the supply route. In addition, the fleet of Australia and India are present in the area to support Malaysia. Xi Jinping will lose face and discredit the world community by attacking Malaysia. That is my answer for this email. For the second question, a group of Buddhist followers in Dallas wrote, "Dear Master, we are very surprised that for the past few days, the Vietnamese Communist press, especially the youth newspaper, published an article stating that in Vietnam from 1954 to 1975, there were two official regimes governing the country. From the 17th latitude to the north was run by Diplomatic Republic of Vietnam, and from the 17th latitude down to the south was ruled by the government of the Republic of Vietnam. The two regimes were internationally recognized, and the youth newspaper asked the people and all government officials not to use the term unofficial government, but as a constitutional Republic of Vietnam government. We wondered if the youth newspaper was out of their minds to say the paradox from the past. We are very surprised to see the youth newspaper of the Vietnamese Communist Party recognize that Vietnam from 1954 April to 1975 had two regimes. It is very strange that the Communist Party youth newspaper changed its belief and recognized the Republic of Vietnam as a lawful legal government in the period of 1954 April to 1975. Master, can you please explain this question for us? We are a group of your disciples whom live in Dallas, Texas. In the past 2 days, there were two sources in the country from the youth newspaper and the local media TV, 14 of the Vietnamese Communists, praising the Republic of Vietnam for bravely shooting at the Chinese warship in 1954 to protect the Spratly and Parcel Islands. Now, a group of Buddhist followers in Dallas, Buddhists, asked me why the youth newspaper of the Vietnamese Communists has an article to praise and recognize from the 17th latitude to the south as the Republic of Vietnam government, which was internationally recognized. It said that during the period from 1954 to 1975, Vietnamese motherland had two different governments and two regimes. Why did the youth newspaper recognize that? I would like to answer the following. Because it was the only way to make the selling Vietnamese territory note of former Prime Minister Phạm Văn Đồng become invalid. There is no other way for the Vietnamese Communists to disregard the selling note. If the Vietnamese Communists did not recognize the Republic of Vietnam ruled southern Vietnam from the 17th latitude as the Geneva Agreement signed on July 20th, 1954, then Phạm Văn Đồng diplomatic note will still be valid. The Vietnamese Communists must clearly state that the Republic of Vietnam was an official government that was recognized internationally. There is no other choice for them. If they do not recognize the Republic of Vietnam and keep saying that the Republic of Vietnam is rebellious southern region against the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, then the two islands, Spratly and Parcel, and the oil fields in the Tu Chin Beach will be returned to Chinese communists. This is the time, if they admit that Vietnam had only one government, which was the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, ruled by the chairman Ho Chi Minh and Prime Minister Phạm Văn Đồng, then the document signed by Phạm Văn in 1954 will be legally valid. As a result, the oil fields at the Tu Chin Beach oil rig that produces $25 billion a year, along with the Parcel and Spratly, will be lost to Chinese communists. The Vietnamese Communist media had to recognize the Republic of Vietnam was a constitutional government that was elected by the people. This government was internationally recognized and ruled by President Ngo Dinh Diem. The Vietnamese Communists must confirm that from the 17th latitude to the north belongs to the internationally recognized Democratic Republic of Vietnam, and from the 17th latitude to the Ca Mau Cape is the internationally recognized Republic of Vietnam. Only so, at this time, the world will recognize the Spratly and Parcel Islands belong to the Republic of Vietnam. President Ngo Dinh Diem did not have any documents to sell the country. Therefore, the Chinese communists cannot do anything but cancel the note of selling Vietnamese territory of Phạm Văn Đồng. If the Vietnamese communists had any other way to cancel its diplomatic note, it would never, ever recognize South Vietnam was ruled by the Republic of Vietnam. The Vietnamese communists also had to request the youth newspaper ask comrades in government agencies from now on not to call the Republic of Vietnam as a reactionary government, but to be called as a legitimate government. During the period of 1954 until 1975, the international community recognized the two governments under the Geneva Agreement, and that agreement was signed on July 20th, 1954. Recognizing the Republic of Vietnam as a legitimate government would make the United Nations dismiss Phạm Văn Đồng diplomatic note. I want to make it clear that if Vietnamese communists had another way to cancel the letter of Phạm Văn Đồng, it would never let the youth newspaper recognize the Republic of Vietnam as a legitimate government. Without admitting the Republic of Vietnam as a legal regime, the Vietnamese communists can't sue the Chinese communists to reclaim Tu Chin Beach, Parcel, and Spratly Islands, because its sovereignty was only 12 nautical miles. If they say that the Republic of Vietnam is a reactionary government, to recognize the Republic of Vietnam was a real regime from the 17th parallel to the south. The Spratly and Parcel Islands belong to the sovereignty of the Republic of Vietnam. So the diplomatic note from Phạm Văn Đồng will be cancelled. You see clearly, this is the only way, and there is no other way. Dear Vulnerable Thich Thong Lai, recently there were many sources from the U.S. newspaper, from the Attorney General, and many forums that said Kim Jong-Un had a stroke and suffered from cerebral palsy. In addition, another source said that a group of Chinese doctors went to North Korea to treat Kim Jong-un. Vulnerable was the only person on April 14 informed that North Korea would have a political meeting to replace a number of personnel. However, Kim Jong-un dies or lives. Only vulnerable is the one that said opposite the U.S. news. All forums and even Attorney General. Is Kim Jong-un currently alive or dead? I only relied on two deciding factors. First, the attitude of the U.S. President Donald Trump. He did not confirm that the new North Korean President Kim Jong-un suffered a brain stroke. Second, the South Korean government did not recognize this news. This news source was released by the Chinese Communists. Their motive is making the press to force Kim Jong-un to appear. Currently, I confirm Kim Jong-un still has total control of North Korea. I also believe when the Chinese Communists attacked Malaysia because it was impossible to anchor down for a week of waiting without doing anything. Food and fuel supplies are not very easy to carry out because it's very far from the Hanang Island. In addition, the two U.S. warships cut off the resupply route of Chinese communists. Another way to retreat and attack Vietnam. However, there's no need to start war with Vietnam because Vietnam has no courage to fight. Chinese communists did not need to fight Vietnam because Vietnam never dares to resist. The Vietnamese communists are cowards. They don't even dare to chase off the Chinese fishing boats. Perhaps the Chinese would fight in the Philippines, but the U.S. warships are also located on the eastern side of the Philippine Islands or the western side of the back of the Chinese fleet. Chinese warships would not dare to cross over Mischief Islands to create a war with the Philippines to save their face. Yesterday, the Chinese ambassador in Washington, D.C. called the U.S. State Department directly, asking the U.S. Department to reconsider their relationship with the government of Xi Jinping. It was the ambassador, not the Chinese consulate, who called the U.S. government to ask the U.S. to consider its relationship with Chinese communists. However, the U.S. State Department did not respond. Xi Jinping is now stuck in a tight spot. He doesn't know how to retreat his fleet with honor. It is impossible to station the aircraft carrier Liaoning to logistic ship the patrol vessels for a long period of time. They can see Malaysian warships but do not dare to touch nor attack it. All decisions will just dig a deeper hole. Xi Jinping planned to mobilize his fleet to the South China Sea because he is under pressure from his hawkish generals. He had to send the mighty forces to threaten all the Southeast Asian countries to relieve the pressure of the world on the pandemic and to unite his people again. Xi Jinping listened to the hawkish general to dispatch the fleet to fight Malaysia. Unfortunately, Malaysian Prime Minister is a truly wise man. He sent warships to battle and delivered a diplomatic note stating that Malaysia is ready to negotiate at the United Nations. Xi Jinping couldn't start the war with Malaysia, nor withdraw. His hawkish generals couldn't force him to retreat either, because if they do so, they cannot no longer force Xi Jinping again in the future. In my observation, the United States is very worried because of the North Korea situation. Since Kim Jong-un's grandfather's time, North Korea has received aid from Chinese, including weapons and ammunition to fight the United States during the Korean War. After his grandfather, Kim II-sung, passed away, his father had campaigned with Chinese communists to receive money and Russia for technology to build atomic warheads. It was the Russian technician who helped North Korea during the period of his father manufacturing 8 nuclear warheads. Chinese communists provided the financial and Russia gave the technology. Kim Jong-un enrolled and graduated from Switzerland University. He had learned from diplomatic countries. As soon as he took over power, he wanted to be free from the Chinese Communist regime. Kim Jong-un's father was very dictatorial, and his grandfather was also obedient, following the Chinese Communists. However, Kim Jong-un had a greater vision. He observed South Korea and other countries that had the influences of the United States. These countries are very strong and well developed. Eventually, Kim Jong-un made an agreement with the United States. Although he had an agreement with the United States, however, the United States surely doesn't have Kim Jong-un cooperation at 100%. The United States only managed to help Kim Jong-un free from Beijing's grip. How can we conclude that Kim Jong-un got off the Chinese trajectory? By looking at the order to shoot all Chinese who enter North Korean territory to evacuate from the coronavirus Wuhan, that was the most decisive declaration of war on Chinese communists by North Korea. I think Xi Jinping is currently trying to create a war, which I had said a long time ago, that they choose 5 battlefields. Everybody at the time concluded that Taiwan would be the battlefield. To me, the Chinese communists did not dare to fight with Taiwan because the war would shift back to the mainland of China. Taiwan will send troops to liberate main island, China, and shake hands with the rebel generals who want to take the side of Taiwan. There is no need to fight Vietnam because Chinese only have to ask, and Vietnam will surrender. They can't fight Malaysia either because the United States has blocked the supply route. I think North Korea has the highest chance to be a Chinese communist battlefield. North Korea does not have a treaty protected by the United States. It also has a common border with the Chinese communists. It is clear that North Korea has closed its door with the Chinese communist authorities. So the Chinese communists will pretend to teach North Korea a lesson for being betrayed. Why hasn't Xi Jinping made his move yet? Because North Korea still possesses 18 atomic warheads. These nuclear warheads were built from Chinese communist money and Russian technology. If North Korea is too smart to declare war against China because of the different army size compared to China. However, if China causes panicking, Kim Jong-un might send these atomic warheads to Beijing, Shanghai, or Shenzhen. He only needs to shoot 3 out of the 18 warheads, and the Chinese communists would be in trouble. If the Chinese communists return fire by neutralizing North Korea, the radiation would spread to Chinese territory as well. In addition, once North Korea is under fire, the United States will also fire to protect its allies, such as South Korea and Japan. The Chinese Communists will fire Japan, Guam Island, and South Korea with nuclear missiles. It provokes World War III, and that was not wanted by the United States. This is the worst scenario that can happen. This is the reason the Chinese Communists cannot attack North Korea. If it is possible, the Chinese would have already deployed, but because of the 18 atomic warheads, the President of the United States didn't really control Kim Jong-un at 100%. North Korea has sided with Chinese Communists for decades since Kim Jong-un's grandfather. They have been eating rice, using their fuel, and carrying weapons from the Chinese Communists, yet did not subdue to the Chinese Communists. Kim Jong-un secretly shook hands with President Donald Trump. President Trump cannot control Kim Jong-un completely. Kim Jong-un would go berserk when the army of Chinese Communists uses the unequal ratio tactics by having 5 million Chinese soldiers fight 1 million North Koreans. That would trigger Kim Jong-un to make wild decisions. So this problem is very dangerous to the world. Back to the issue of Chinese ambassador calling the U.S. State Department requesting a review of the relationship between the two countries, and the U.S. government did not answer. The number of Americans killed by the coronavirus was nearly equal to the number of U.S. soldiers who fought and died in Vietnam. During the 20 years of the Vietnamese War, there were only 58,000 casualties. The number of innocent Americans that died has now increased much more to the number of American soldiers whom were killed in the Vietnamese battlefield. So up to now, I still confirm there is no other way to cancel the selling of Phạm Văn Đồng besides admitting that the Republic of Vietnam is a real government and a real entity. The Vietnamese Communists must admit that they invaded the Republic of Vietnam by violating the Paris Agreement signed in January 27, 1973. They also violated the Geneva Agreement signed in July 20, 1954. That is the only way it would return Phạm Văn Đồng sales note into a meaningless piece of paper. The Chinese Communists was in dilemma because their powerful fleet is floating on the sea without doing anything. It is like a pile of scrap metal. If the Chinese attack Malaysia, it would be condemned by the world. The United States would surely intervene and ask Taiwan to attack China immediately. The goal of mobilizing the fleet into the South China Sea was to unite the Chinese people and the hawkish generals together, which is now even more divided. The Chinese could not fight Vietnamese either, because the Vietnamese Communists declared that in Vietnam from 1954 to 1975 there were two governments, the Democratic Republic of Vietnam and the Republic of Vietnam. It was the only way for the Vietnamese Communists to keep its islands by recognizing the Republic of Vietnam is a real nation with a legitimate government and was recognized by the United Nations. I think the Chinese Communists would choose to attack North Korea, but they need to win the fight with North Korea. The problem is North Korea has 18 atomic bombs. If Kim Jong-Un shoots the Chinese communists with 10 of these, China will be in big trouble. If China decides to denuclearize North Korea first because of its small content, South Korea will be affected as well. The American troops stationed in South Korea will not leave this alone. Surely Japan will not either. So that is the answer you will see happening in the near future. A lot of things will happen. The President of the United States will not tolerate Chinese communists from dispersing coronavirus Wuhan, slaughtering the United States. The world community considers Chinese communists as a crime of genocide worldwide. Respectfully yours, remember that we have to stand by the President of the United States. If we are a little resentful when we hear from the Vietnamese seas and islands was invaded by Chinese communists, a little resentment when we see Vietnamese fishermen got sunk by Chinese vessels in our continental shelf, if we still have a little regret and a little pain, then we still have patriotism. You don't have to send money nor do anything other than to use the ballot to support the U.S. President Donald Trump to help him dissolve the communist regime. When the Chinese communists collapse, the Vietnamese would die. The benefit is the Vietnamese people will be free. We are people in the United States, including the monk Thich Thong Lai himself. We speak out for Vietnam. I don't want to be a king because the Buddhists taught a monk shall not be a king. But I fight for Vietnam because I am a free and happy. I want my 95 million people to be as happy and free as me. I will never condemn the Vietnamese people as cowards because I put myself in their shoes. And I understand if I still live in Vietnam under the muzzles of communism, under the muzzles of Chinese communists, I cannot do anything different for the people in the country. I want to tell Vietnamese people in the country clearly, Master Thich Thong Lai never had a thought to condemn you. Master Thich Thong Lai only understands and loves the people still living in the Vietnam country. Respectfully yours.
Vì tôi đã tự đặt hoàn cảnh mình nếu còn ở Việt Nam dưới họng súng của Việt Cộng, dưới họng súng của Tàu Cộng, tôi cũng không làm gì khác hơn, cũng giống như những đồng bào thấp cổ bé miệng. Cho nên tôi nói rõ cho đồng bào Việt Nam trong nước nghe, thầy Thong Lai không bao giờ có một tư tưởng lên án quý vị, mà thầy Thong Lai chỉ có hiểu và thương đồng bào còn ở trong nước. Trân trọng kính chào.